Top 10 reasons not to move to Australia. Are you thinking about moving to Australia? There are some things you might want to know before you pack your bags and head for the land of rabbits and big beaches. Life down under isn't always the paradise you might think it is, thanks to things like sky-high rent prices and harsh weather. So is Australia really the dream place you think it is, or could you face some unexpected problems there? Many people get the impression that Australia is a paradise on Earth because of its breathtaking scenery, warm and welcoming people, and diverse animal population, which include the exorbitantly high cost of living and the geographical isolation. Before you decide to pack up and go to Australia, you might want to give some serious consideration to the top 10 reasons that are discussed in this video. Number 10. Problems with the internet. It is both slow and unreliable. In spite of the fact that Australia has such a developed economy, the country's internet infrastructure is startlingly behind the times. As of right now, Australia is ranked 62nd in the world for internet speeds, which is a significant distance behind other industrialized countries. What is the irony? However, despite the fact that Australia was the home of Wi-Fi technology, Australians continue to deal with connections that are slow and unreliable. This can be a significant source of annoyance for people who are employed in remote positions or who make their living through the use of the internet. Number 9. Geographical isolation. A continent that is cut off from the rest of the world. Due to the fact that it is situated in the very bottom of the Earth, Australia is considered to be one of the most geographically isolated countries in their whole. The process of traveling between cities or to other nations is not only time-consuming, but also resource-intensive. When compared to Europeans who can hop on a low-cost flight and arrive in another country in a matter of hours, Australians have to endure significantly longer journeys to even the most nearby international places, such as New Zealand or Southeast Asia. When you're someone who enjoys traveling or who keeps close relationships with family members who live in other countries, this feeling of isolation can be overwhelming. Number 8. The high cost of travel within Australia is the third consideration. In addition to the unacceptably high cost of domestic travel inside Australia, the expense of overseas travel is also considered unreasonably expensive. Because of the high expenses of both flights and hotels, traveling to Australia on a budget might be challenging, despite the fact that the country is enormous and rich in diversity. Because of its remote location and high costs, Australia is less accessible to its own citizens. As a result, many people are left wondering whether they will ever have the opportunity to properly see the stunning outback, coral reefs, or inaccessible national parks that the country has to offer. Number 7. Problems with the public transportation system. With the best of intentions, Australia's public transportation networks are unreliable, and in certain regions, they are almost non-existent. The projects that are intended to improve public transportation, such as high-speed trains or huge metro networks, are consistently falling behind schedule or being scrapped entirely. The possession of an automobile is not merely a luxury in many regions of the United States, particularly in rural communities. Rather, it is an absolute requirement. For those who are accustomed to relying on public transportation, the fact that Australia continues to be one of the most car-dependent nations in the world might be a source of inconvenience. Number 6. As the cost of living continues to skyrocket. Although Australia's economy has been thriving for many years, this prosperity has not come without a price. The cost of living has skyrocketed across the country. The median price of a home in places such as Sydney and Melbourne has surpassed 1 million Australian dollars, making it nearly impossible for the average person to afford residential real estate in these areas. Even the most basic of needs, such as groceries, utilities, and transportation, are prohibitively expensive in comparison to the majority of other lands. This means that young adults and those who are new to the nation will have to live with their families for longer periods of time or share housing in order to make ends meet. One of the primary reasons that many expatriates regret relocating to Australia is the high cost of living, which makes it difficult to strike a balance between the quality of life and the stability of one's financial situation. Number 5. The extreme weather conditions. Australia is a country that is prone to experiencing harsh weather, despite the fact that it is famous for its beautiful beaches and abundant sunshine. During the summer months in Australia, temperatures frequently rise above 40 degrees Celsius, 104 degrees Fahrenheit. It is not just the heat that is a problem in Australia. The country is also extremely vulnerable to natural calamities such as cyclones, floods, droughts, and bushfires. Fires ravaged major portions of the country during the 2019 to 2020 bushfire season, making it one of the deadliest seasons on record for the country. Residents who live in rural or forested locations are constantly concerned about the possibility of bushfires occurring in their communities. As the rate of climate change quickens, it is anticipated that these weather extremes will only get more severe. Number 4. Racism and the isolation of cultural backgrounds. Racism and cultural insensitivity are still prevalent in Australia despite the fact that the country is being praised for its multiculturalism. The majority of people who live abroad, particularly those who come from non-Western backgrounds, have reported encountering racism in a variety of forms. It is possible that Australia's physical and cultural isolation can occasionally produce a sense of inward-looking nationalism, which can make the country appear unwelcoming to those who are not native to the country. Despite the fact the vast majority of Australians are warm and accepting of others, there are persistent problems inside the country, such as the proliferation of political movements on the far right and a long history of inhumane treatment of the indigenous population. It might be difficult for newcomers to navigate this complex social environment when they are unfamiliar. Number 3. Political dissatisfactions and frustrations. Particularly for individuals who are accustomed to governments that are more stable, the political landscape of Australia may be extremely irritating. Over the course of the last 10 years, Australia has experienced a succession of prime ministers, with leadership shifts occurring often and occasionally as a result of unanticipated circumstances. There are moments when the country may feel as though it has no direction because of the political turmoil. In addition, the environmental and social policies of Australia are frequently subjected to criticism, both within the country and at the international level. It is possible for residents to become disillusioned with the political system as a result of issues such as the lack of action taken about climate change, the bad treatment of asylum seekers, and the slow progress made on Indigenous rights. Number 2. Obstacles that are faced by immigrants. The immigration procedure in Australia is notoriously difficult to understand and notoriously stringent. There are several bureaucratic hurdles that must be overcome in order to obtain citizenship or permanent residency, which can be a lengthy and difficult procedure. When it comes to employment, many immigrants suffer difficulties as well. This is because businesses in Australia frequently give preference to individuals who have experience or qualifications that are native to the country. Those who are successful in making the move to Australia may find that it takes some time to adjust to the country's distinctive culture and way of life. Considering the fact that the social and cultural standards in Australia are distinct from those in other countries, it is not unusual for immigrants to feel some degree of culture shock. Number 1. It's possible that you'll never want to go. Australia has a way of getting under your skin thanks to all of the difficulties it presents. The high cost of living, the slow internet, and the sweltering summers are just some of the reasons it is difficult to say no to Australia because of its breathtaking natural scenery, welcoming communities, and easygoing way of life. As soon as you have adjusted to the peculiarities and difficulties that come with living in Australia, you could find it tough to leave. However, this can make it even more irritating when life's practicalities, such as high living costs or geographical remoteness, prevent one from fully appreciating what Australia has to offer. This can be a challenge for many people. A land of contrasts, Australia is a country. Despite the fact that it provides a number of advantages, such as breathtaking scenery, inhabitants who are kind and welcoming, and a high standard of living, it is essential to take into consideration a number of considerations, including the high expense of living, the geographical isolation, the slow internet speeds, and the political instability. In order to make an informed decision about moving to Australia, it is essential to have a realistic grasp of what life includes there. Your own priorities and the degree to which you are willing to adjust to the distinctive way of life in Australia are the most important factors in determining whether or not Australia is the perfect place for you. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on more helpful insights and tips for making the best life choices.